All right, so good evening. I'm going to start the class. As I said, I'm going to record this class for you, all right? Well, you have to watch it. I'm going to tell you where the link is, but I think you know because I explained that in the first class, right? And of course, if you're watching the class, you know where it is, but it is always going to be over here. Remember that here on Google Classroom, you have this information, my presentation, the course's presentation, or sometimes the calendar. And here you have the link to join the meeting and also the link to access the YouTube channel. All right, so if it happens, all right, once again in the future, you know that it is always going to be over there. Today, I'm going to work the lesson that we were working yesterday, and we're going to work one more lesson that is the last one for this unit. And as I told you, you're going to have until Sunday, 11:59 p.m. to complete everything. Okay, so everything is exactly the same. Don't worry if you have that type of emergency, it's understandable. If you want to ask a type of permission, perhaps to have the class, all right, like to be here and interacting class, you can ask for permission, but you have to ask that permission to management. If they give that permission, perhaps they can ask me to replace the class in a different day. But in this case again, or if not, I'm going to do it like I'm doing here, that it's replacing the class. Oh, sorry, more than replacing, recording the class for you so that you can watch it when you have the time and to work on your own. All right, so let's then start. Everything is done on Pearson, you know that, so you only have to complete the tasks over there and to well, more than finish, you have to complete and to take the let's say the quiz. This is the third quiz, right? That's it. I mean, we're going to start now by working here. Over here. This is the a lesson that we started working with, and we have to finish today. Again, as you're not going to be able to practice with me, I'm going to try to give you more examples, just like that. And then you're going to, well, practice on your own. You're going to try to show me some examples if you want to again, verify that it is correct. So remember that we are talking about mainly about three expressions, right? And this is the correct order. The strongest, right, or the stronger among those three is must, but we can say the superlative the strongest, right? So the strongest is must, then it's followed by I've got to or I have got to, and of course, the least strong, right, is going to be have or have to. In this case, it has to be have to, right? So it is in the correct order. Must, have got to, and have to. We're talking about necessity. So when you have to do something, it's because you need to do it, right? So she has to show her ID to enter the building. That's a necessity or a type of obligation. Or I have to do this to feel better. That's a necessity that you have. All right, verbs of necessity. In a certain way, you need to do that. If not, it is something else is not going to be possible, or something is not going to happen, right? That's why it is considered a necessity. So one more time, let me read the examples for you. Remember, this is the least strong. So if you want to say this in a context in which you don't have to be that strong and that formal, you can use have to. So she has to show her ID to enter the building. They had to park in a different place. That's simple past, right? Have, has, present, had, simple past. Will have, this is future. John will have to renew his permit, right? And remember, this is also what I told you, right? In this case, it's permit, because permit is going to be a verb, right? So permit is that little thing, a noun, all right? That object that shows that you can do something. And permit is a verb, right? You can permit someone, right, to do something. And that's we have to. We practice that a little bit, but we need to practice then, as we're not going to writing, we're not going to have the time, or actually we're not going to be able to do it now. we're going to just review it in this way. Now, in negative, remember, it means that it's not necessary, right? It's not something that you cannot do. It's something that you don't need to do. So if you say she doesn't have to show her ID to enter the building, it's not that if she shows her ID, she's going to be, I don't know, right, sanctioned, or she's going to be, I don't know, or she's going to receive any type of punishment. No, because it's not a prohibition, it's not prohibited for that person, it's just not necessary, right? If she shows that ID, it's okay, but it was not necessary. They didn't have to park in a different place, they didn't have that necessity, right? But they could have parked in a different place. Yes, it's a possibility, it was a possibility in the past, but it's not necessary. And John won't have to renew his permit if he wants to enroll, right? And again, it's not necessary for them to do it, okay? And remember, it's not something that you don't have to do in the sense of it's a prohibition, okay? For example, if you said, right, you don't have to, let's say this, okay, miss classes. That's not something, okay, that you can do. That feels again something different, right? And again, that feels like again, that something is forbidden that you cannot do. But again, in this case, please just remember one more time in negative, it is not necessary. Now, have got to, we have to, have got to, it's stronger, right, than have to. It is stronger than have to. It is not the strongest, it is only stronger than have to. It gives more emphasis, and the translation to Spanish is the same. Okay, they mean the same. When you say, I have to finish now, and when you say, I've got to finish now, it's the same, but I've got to finish now is stronger. Just that. Okay, so it says, Oliver has to print those documents for tomorrow. Okay, it seems that it's urgent. He has that necessity. Mary's got, and that S is has. Mary has got to study. In other words, Mary has to study. It's the same. Mary's got to study harder to pass the exam. Okay, she has that necessity. They have got to, or they've got to send their resume if they want to apply. Okay, this is one exception. You say resume if you're talking about the documents to show your experience, education, and so on. Then we've got to learn the notes on the staff, right, to read sheet music. And again, this is a necessity. So anytime you want to say have to, you can say have got to make it stronger. So instead, sorry, I have to go now, right? Because you need to go, you need to leave that place. You can say, sorry, I've got to go now, right? I've got to go now. So, and if you analyze, you listen to that a lot, right? You listen a lot to that expression, I've got to go, I gotta, but you listen to the contraction, and sometimes you don't listen to the v or the s that is has or have. You only listen to got. Okay, but it's one way to say it. It's informal, it's for speaking, but it is this structure. Okay, when you have got to do something, means that you have to do something because it is a necessity. And finally, we have must, right? Must is also a necessity, but it is very strong. It is stronger than have to, and that have got to, it means it is the strongest, all right, model to talk about necessity. So the same idea, right? Oliver must print those documents for tomorrow. It is a necessity and it's imperative. It is very strong. With must is something, again, that it is almost, you can consider that an obligation, all right? It's obligatory to do it. Mary must study harder. It's obligatory if she wants to pass the test, she must study harder. They must send their resume if they want to apply. If not, they cannot apply. Okay, that's, again, that's an obligation and or a requirement in this case. And we must learn the location of the notes and so on and so forth, because if you don't, it is not going to be possible for you to read sheet music. So you must do it, right? So the stronger the sensation that you want to transmit, well, the more you have to use this model: must, have to, and sorry, have got to and have to. Okay, so those are the models of, let's say, necessity. Now you can use this in negative. Let's read this. Use any of these options to talk about prohibition. Now this is important, but remember that you don't use have to in negative for prohibition. You have to use must not and cannot. Okay, it's something that you are forbidden to do. Okay, it means you cannot do that, you must not do it. Because if you do it, there's going to be a consequence. So the examples say, the first one, you must not leave the class before the survey, right? Consider that an obligation. If you do it, again, it is not going to be correct. They cannot speak loudly during the exam. Again, that's also a prohibition, that's forbidden for them. They cannot do it. Again, if they do it, there's going to be a sanction, there's going to be some type of punishment. She must not hand in her assignment without showing her ID. That's also a prohibition, something she must not do. And Peter can't, right, stay here after the recess. The same idea, right? So again, here you have to think of some prohibitions. You must not, right, or you cannot vote if you are 17 years old, right? You cannot do it. You must not, what could it be? Something simple. Yes, it's not here, right? You must not park here because it is reserved. So it's a prohibition. You cannot park there. You must not do it because, again, if you do, you have some consequences over there. And we have one more. Let me see. This is for questions. And to use that for different tenses, you have to use have to, right? That's the option that you got. Because remember that have got to, it's mainly in affirmative ideas, and in one tense mainly that expresses an idea in present. And must also, it's like a present to future model. So it means if you want to ask questions and you want to be more flexible, you can use, or you have to use, in this case, have to. So do we have to bring our papers for Monday? Right? She's had to stay longer. This is now in a different tense. This is something, I don't know if you covered this before, but if not, you're going to do it with me. I believe we're going to see this tense here or in the next course, but this is the present perfect, right? She has had to stay longer so as to finish her assignment. Remember, in order to finish her assignments. Then what did you have to do to take that course? So the first one is present. The second one is present perfect, that is a type of past. The third one is simple past, right? That's the first type of past that you learn along with the verb to be in past. And this is future, right? Will we have to work on a new presentation for next week? And there you go. All right. So if you want flexibility, it means if you want to say that in different tenses or in a question, it is a good idea to use have to instead of have got to and instead of must, because of the flexibility that you have for that. All right. So that's it. That's the first lesson. Again, perhaps today I'm going to finish before. Well, it's because, again, usually I use that extra time for practicing. But if we finish before, that's it. I don't want to cover extra, content that we have to cover on Monday, because it's important that we are working together. Right? So that was the first one. Now we have one more. It is not here, sorry. It is already opened over here. Now, Adjectives. Remember, you know what adjectives are. You told me the definition, right? That these are words that describe people or objects, right? It's a word that describes tall. Tall describes Peter, right? The house is beautiful. Beautiful describes the house. Now, there are some adjectives that end in ed and ing, but it's not because it's past. Okay, adjectives don't have tenses. Okay, so adjectives are not in present, past, future. No, it's not past, and ing is not present. It's not an action that is happening, and it's not a gerund. Okay, so ing also can be uh, the ending for an adjective. Okay, so those are participial or participle adjectives. Those words that end in ed and ing that describe a noun. Okay, so here, this is very important. She's boring, she's bored, both are correct. They are surprising, they are surprised. Remember, they are adjectives, they are not tenses. They are not present, they are not past, they are not future. All of them are in present. She's boring, she's bored. So what's the difference between between boring and bored? Right? It's very simple. That's what we're going to learn. The entire lesson is about that. Okay, boring, it means that she produces that. Okay, it means if you have a conversation with her, you're going to be like, ooh, okay, you're going to feel bored. Okay, so you are bored because she's boring. Or you can say the movie is boring. So if the movie that you are watching is boring, the movie produces that, then you are bored, right? So boring, you produce, you give that feeling, and bored, you feel that. Okay, is when you feel it. So if she's bored means that something else is boring, and that's why she's bored. All right. In Spanish is different. In Spanish is like saying ella es aburrida. She's boring. Ella es aburrida. And she is bored means ella está aburrida. All right. So again, in English and Spanish, it's different, but that's the difference. All right. She's boring means ella es aburrida, and she's bored means ella está aburrida. Here the same. They are surprising, right? Ellos son sorprendentes. They are surprising. They produce that. You have a conversation with them or you see them and you are like, wow, they are surprising. And they are surprised means ellos están sorprendidos, right? So they feel that they are surprised. Okay, so that's the main difference. Boring, bored, surprising, surprised. Okay, now let's read. Okay, so participle or participial adjectives are adjectives that end in ed, past participle, or ing, present participle. Okay, that's the name they have. But this is important, it is not related with their tense. Okay, it's not the tense. It's not that they are in present or past. It's just the name of the word. Okay, there aren't adjectives that are in present or past. Okay, adjectives don't have tense, and they well, actually, that's written over there, right? Adjectives don't have any tense, so it's just referred to what I told you. Ing, you produce. I am boring. Yo soy aburrido. And ed, you feel. I am bored. Yo estoy aburrido. Okay, so it's very different. You have to be careful. If you use ing and ed with adjectives, you have to be careful because the meaning is very different. So it says, we usually use the past participle, it means ending in ed, to talk about how someone feels. Again, right? And this is, of course, usually used for living beings, not usually. And I say usually because you can, of course, use this with animated, right? And characters. But of course, it has to be a living being. It can be usually it's for people and animals because we can feel, we can have these emotions, all right? Not for objects. Again, unless it's something metaphorical or related to animated characters. So I was really bored. It means I felt boredom during the flight. You don't say I was really boring. She's interested, remember, you gave me one example like that. Interesting means ser interesante. Interested means estar interesado, right? So if you say she's interesting, you're saying ella es interesante. But here you say she's interested. It means ella está interesada. So she's interested in history. It means she wants to learn about history because she likes it, perhaps. John's frightened of spiders. The same idea. He feels that. Okay, so ed means that you feel that. I'm bored. She's interested. John's frightened. Ed. Okay, and again, it's not past. It is only a way to express an adjective. And cause, it means you produce, right? The present participle with ing, but this is not present, it's just the name of the word. So we usually use this adjective with ing to talk about the person, thing, or situation which has caused the feeling. It means that here you can talk about objects, right? Ed is not for objects, ing is for objects, right? Because you can say this is a cell phone, right? This is a cell phone. So this cell phone is really interesting, right? But you don't say this cell phone is really interested, right? Because the cell phone cannot be interested, right? El celular no puede estar interesado en algo. So ed for people and animals, ing can be for everything, people, animals, objects, whatever you want. So it was such a long, boring flight, right? So the flight is being described with ing, a boring flight. Then let me see this one. Yes, so this is past. I read a really interesting book, right? Interesting book. You're describing the book about history. So I was interested in that book because the book is interesting, right? So that's the game between ed and ing. Many people find spiders frightening. It means the spiders produce that, right? They are scary. So they are frightened, people in general, when they see spiders. Okay, so again, this is the logic. If you get this idea, that's it. That's the lesson itself, because it's the interaction between something that produces a feeling, an emotion, and a person or an animal that feels that is being produced. Okay, so if the movie is amazing, I am amazed, right? So the movie is amazing, comma, so I am amazed. Amazing produces amazed you feel. That girl is stunning, so I am stunned. The same idea. The girl produces that feeling, so you're stunned. Okay, you are like, wow, that girl. Then the class is boring, so I am bored. Okay, so the class is boring, it produces boredom, and you feel that boredom, so you are bored. They are surprising, so we are surprised. All right. So advice, this is what I told you. With this, we're going to finish. Again, to be sure, and if you want, you can make me check your, okay, your examples. But again, as we cannot check the examples now, I'm going to be finishing after some details I'm going to show you. And it's also the last part for the lesson, the unit. I'm going to go to Pearson to see some details. Also, I'm going to give you some reminders, some last recommendations, and I finish the class with that. All right, so advice. Be careful. I'm boring is very different from I'm bored, right? I told you. I'm boring means what? Soy aburrido. right? And I'm bored means estoy aburrido. So I'm boring means that I cause other people to be bored. It is not good, right? Here are some examples of when one person causes a feeling in another person. Okay, so I was talking to yes, to a such a boring guy. Okay, good. Now I was talking to such a boring guy. He's describing just that person at the party. He talked about himself for an hour. Okay, so the guy, that person is boring because that person was only talking about himself in this case. All right, that's why the girl says that he is boring. She's a really interesting woman. She's lived all over the world and speaks 5 languages. Okay, so that's why, because she speaks 5 languages, she's been around the world, she's a really interesting woman and you want to meet her. My maths teacher at school was really frightening. He was always shouting at the students, right? Like yelling, screaming, "Hey, don't do that! Hey!" And that's why he was frightening because he produced that feeling of something scary, right? So you were scared of him. That's why you say frightened. You were frightened, and the teacher was frightening, right? Now, in comparatives, remember adjectives, you learned that. If it's short adjective, you use er. If it's long, you use more. So with all adjectives that are participial adjectives, like these ones, ed, ing, you are going to use more or most if you're talking about superlatives. So let's read. And then it says, that book is more boring than this one. Okay, so more boring, more. I think Dr. Smith's lesson was more interesting than Dr. Brown's. More interesting comparison. Now, this is a superlative here. I think you didn't see this with me in detail, but you must know. If you don't, again, you're going to cover that with me in the future. For 24 hours on the flight to Australia, I was the most bored I've ever seen. Okay, so that's superlative, the most bored, the most boring, the most interesting, the most amazing. So it continues. I think this is the most interesting talk we've heard today. Okay, most interesting, superlative, and one more superlative. It was the most frightening film that he'd ever seen. Okay, so the same idea. Those are comparatives, and here you have a list of adjectives with an example that can help you understand. I'm not going to read the example. I'm going to try to read just the the adjectives and some of them. Okay, so if it's alarming, produces, you are alarmed. If it's amusing, it means entertaining, you are amused. Boring, bored, you know that one. Confusing, confused. Easy, depressing, depressed. Right? So the same logic. Embarrassing, if something is embarrassing and you say, oh no, I don't want to go there, right? You're embarrassed. Then if the situation is embarrassing, you are embarrassed. You feel embarrassed. Exciting, excited, exhausting, exhausted, fascinating, fascinated, frightening, and frightened. Frustrating, frustrated, interesting, interested, overwhelming, overwhelmed, relaxing, relaxed, right? So again, if that's relaxing, you feel relaxed. Satisfying, satisfied. Shocking, shocked. Surprising, surprised. Terrifying, terrified. Thrilling, and thrilled. Tiring, and tired. And that's it, okay? Here you have the link with the sources where I got that list and some other elements, and more links just for you to practice. Okay, so we should be good with that. again, I cannot do review some details about this one, but remember that the quiz and the assignments are until Sunday. Okay, so it's mainly going to be for you not to have extra doubts, but it should be clear. All right, I don't believe this is a complex or hard lesson, but in case you have questions, of course, you can have some questions, you can let me know. All right, so the thing I was telling you I'm going to do now before leaving, I'm just going to take a look at Pearson and to show what we should be aware of, what are the structures that you should feel comfortable with, and to see again how you're doing, to give you some recommendations in general. This is going to be very short, just to finish the class. Okay, so let's wait until it loads. Well, you know that when I mentioned that next week we are finishing this course, A9, and Wednesday we are starting A10. Okay, in A10 is going to be the same. We have a new product. Well, we're going to join a new course. We have a new platform, and we're going to be working in that way until we finish. I believe it's until A11, so that's going to be our goal, right? So first grade book, I believe you're doing great as you did it in the previous course. Okay, so keep working in that way. Yes, so you're missing this last let's say assignments. That's good. And the last quiz. So it's okay because you have today, you have tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow to finish this. So it's more than enough. Okay, so it means again you're doing good, pretty good. Now going to the course. I'm just going to show you the things that you should know by now. And as we're close to finishing this course, it's important that you again are sure that you know everything. So in the first unit, right, we got to see past continuous with when. Remember, I was doing something when something happened, right? So something in progress and something interrupts or happens in the middle and then it continues, right? So I was listening to music when I saw that person. I heard a very loud noise and you called me. Okay, so I was doing something when many things happened. That's past continuous with when. Models of permission. You know that you have options. You can say can, could, may, right? Can I close? Can I open the window? Could I open the window? May I open the window? Right? You're asking for permission. And sorry, we have one more. And comparisons with SS, right? He is as tall as Peter. She is as beautiful as, right, that girl. Or this task is as hard as the previous one. And that's comparison with S. Okay, so if you feel comfortable with those structures, then it's good. You can let me know if that's not the case. Inseparable phrasal verbs. Remember, verbs that are always together and cannot be separated, divided. And the meaning of the verb can be different from the meaning of the verb alone. For example, run, right? To run means to move quickly, right? But run into means to find or to meet someone by accident, accidentally, right? So when you say, I ran into my ex-girlfriend, it means that you were walking and without planning, accidentally, you, right, got to find her on the street or in the street. Okay, so that's run into. So those are phrasal verbs. Verbs that are joined by, let's say, one or two particles, and the meaning of that verb changes because of those particles. Okay, and remember, try to practice those ones you have run into, you have come across, you have go over, you have take, right, sorry, look forward to. Those are three words that are over there, right? Look forward to, take after, right? Look after, and so on and so forth. They can be conjugated in present, past, future, right? Get rid of. So I always get rid of the things that I don't use. Present simple. Right now, I'm getting rid of this, right, trash. That's present continuous. I was getting rid of that, I don't know, that book, but I regret it. Okay, so past continuous, I got rid of those, I don't know, what could it be? Okay, those pens, that's simple past. And you have present perfect. I have gotten rid of, I don't know, right? The things you told me before, and so on and so forth. It can be future. Okay, it's an example to show that it can be in any tense that you want. Gerunds and infinitives. Remember, gerunds, verbs with ing that are nouns, and infinitives, the combination with to and the verb in the base verb. So you have gerunds as subjects, right? Playing the guitar is very exciting. You can say gerunds after some verbs. I always enjoy playing the guitar. One more time. And one more example, after some expressions, if you remember worth, it is really worth playing the guitar. And one more after prepositions, right? I was thinking of playing the guitar. Okay, so I used playing the guitar in all of those examples to show that it can be, again, located at the beginning as a subject, afterwards as an object, after verbs, after some expressions, after prepositions. And infinitives also can be subjects, not as common. They can be placed, and they have to be placed after some verbs. I need to go, I want to go, I decided to go, right? I can afford to buy, and so on and so forth. And it can be used with one more person, right? To have a special interaction, like I need you to finish that. She needs her brother to help her. And finally, purpose, right? Purpose is related to reason, to goal, to objective. So I, what could it be? I'm learning French to study in France, right? That's it. Future time clauses, you have when, you have after, before, right? I will go to the United States when I finish studying English. I will go to the United States after I graduate from college. I will, right? Um, I will, what could it be? I will graduate from my college before, right? Before I go or I travel abroad. Okay, and you have other words to connect, but the idea is a future time clause is going to give you a time reference, right, for the idea that you're given in future. That's unit 2 and the one that we covered today, right? That it's infinitives of purpose. I already mentioned that. We practiced, right? Like I'm studying French to study in France. Then models of necessity that we finished today. Have to is the least strong. Have got to is stronger than have to, and must is the strongest, right? Participial adjectives. Once again, ed, ing, it's past participle, present participle, but it's not past or present. It is just a way in which you write those adjectives, but ed means feeling something, and ing means producing something. And again, I'm boring, I'm bored, right? They are very different. So if you feel comfortable with that content, it means that you are doing good. If you get to have any questions, again, I wanted to give you this review, also taking advantage of the time that I have now, but that's practically it. So I'll see you on Monday. All right. Enjoy your weekend. I hope everything goes well with the things you told me. And again, I hope everything goes well in the sense that it has to be okay, and in the sense of having the time to finish these details, right? Mm, that's it. Okay, that's it. On Monday, we start the last unit and we continue working in the way that we know that we work. All right, thanks for watching the class. And well, I'm going to be in contact with you in case you have any questions, you let me know. But once again, Monday could be the first part to to answer to some of the questions and solve some doubts that you may have. That's it. Have a good night and a good weekend.